Hello, welcome back. Another Dungeon Master preparation live stream. This is where I talk about how to create skill challenges, and like everybody talks about how to create skill challenges on Dungeons and Dragons, it's like a throwback to 4E, which in fact I used skill challenges in 4E. But while I'm filling up my water bottle and waiting to make sure that YouTube is actually broadcasting to you, the the goal is actually to make a skill challenge. Would you believe it? We're actually going to do it live. So I will do my presentation and then we will make a skill challenge. And I have selected a skill challenge that I thought you will probably use as a dungeon master. Because if you are playing with sailing ships and pirates and a storm and a ship is a good one to do. And you should be able to reuse it often. And of course, you will let me know if that's not the kind of skill challenge you were hoping for and that you were looking for something else. And you will tell me, Fred, I want a skill challenge for this. And then we can have a go at doing that in the future. Or even today, if you decide that the poll that I'm about to put up is like, nah, Fred, I don't really want a sailing ship in a storm skill challenge. I can find no use for that whatsoever. So for those of you who have been part of this before, my suggestion to you is start writing down some ideas, thinking about what we're targeting for, like some action scenes and some actions or things you can do, like what would be the scene and then what we would do, and sort of write down some mechanics we can build, and we'll go from there. How's it going, West T? Hello. Hi, Scott. How's it going, Scott? And Sika. Hello, Sika. You put all these into a nice playlist one day. They are going into a playlist. I'm slowly getting organised, but yes, there will be a playlist that this says creating skill challenges, and you can just go through and look at all of this stuff. Or world building, it'll just be a big, huge, long playlist for that. So don't worry about that. Don't freak out. It's going to happen. And of course, the skill challenge that I do on Google Docs will wind up going to Patreon as an open document that you can edit and change and modify for yourself, and get rid of all the stuff that you thought Fred did that was shite. Okay, it should look good. Like if I'm not coming through in nice clean 4K, then I've done something wrong. And not to mention that I've spent way too much money and not got my money's worth. So let me get the slideshow going, and then we'll go straight into actually building a skill challenge based on your responses. We'll see how well that all works out. I apologize now if my voice sort of cracks and breaks, because I am definitely feeling the effects of the winter lurgy. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And yes, there is going to be skill challenges involved. As all things here on my channel, we do stuff, and today is a Dungeon Master preparation. This is lesson 7. I've done this before. This is creating skill challenges, and yes, I'm going to talk about how to create skill challenges, and then we're going to make one. Like, yes, you don't have to just listen to, oh, here's the theory. No, it's going to actually happen. So the overview for today is why use a skill challenge. I'll explain when you might want to use them and when you might not want to use them. How to create a skill challenge. Player actions in a skill challenge. What does that look like? Skill challenge consequences, because we've got to have a consequence for success and for failure, and then miscellaneous recommendations. And of course, once that's all covered, we're going to actually make a skill challenge, because that was the whole point of putting this entire program together in the first place. Objectives today. I'm going to explain everything. We're going to do some demonstration, don't you worry, and you're going to get to participate in the live chat and actually give me some feedback and change the way the skill challenge works to make sure it is better than it was before, or I deal with the issues that need to be dealt with. Now, I'm going to advise those of you who are playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e, you can find the basic rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5e for free on D&D Beyond, and also the official Dungeons & Dragons website. So go and check that out. Although I will be using mostly mechanics from Dungeons & Dragons 5e, you shouldn't have too much trouble porting a lot of these ideas over to a different game system, such as Pathfinder or something else, or an older version of Dungeons & Dragons if you want to. So don't concern yourself too much with that. Okay, so why use skill challenges? There's a couple of different reasons why I would suggest that you use them in your game, and different ways that you can use them so you are successful. The thing to remember is a skill challenge tells part of the adventure story. It's a cinematic scene. It's more cinematic in manner. It's very broad. It's broader than just doing something like combat mechanics. So when we do something like this, because we're trying to go for cinematic, we're not looking to try to duplicate a battle or a combat. Usually the combat mechanics that we already have for Dungeons & Dragons or Dungeons & Dragons 5e do the job. We don't need to use a skill challenge for that. We wouldn't use a skill challenge if the only thing you're going to do is cast a single spell or make a single dice roll. There are plenty of ways to do that without worrying about making the complexity of a skill challenge. A skill challenge is really good at doing a couple of things. Action scenes, large-scale battles that you don't want to be using any kind of combat mechanics from Dungeons & Dragons 5e or any game system. It would be too complicated. A large-scale battle where the main players are controlling portions of the army. Or if we're doing something like a trap, even something like natural hazards can be quite useful too. And that's probably one of the things that I would sort of focus in when you're using a skill challenge. If the skill challenge doesn't have enough scenes or enough events to overcome, so in other words, if you don't have enough things going on, it's probably best not to use the skill challenge without sort of making some adjustments. If you don't have enough going on, then it's not really a skill challenge. Now, one of the things you'll find is a skill challenge doesn't work well as a combat encounter, which I sort of indicated. They don't make very good puzzles. There are plenty of ways of running a puzzle that have nothing to do with a skill challenge. I would eliminate that as an option. With a puzzle, just let it be a puzzle, okay? Social interactions, again, I wouldn't bother using a skill challenge. I would just let people communicate like normal people back and forth and just have a dialogue. And then research exercises. I know a lot of people like, let's make a skill challenge that revolves around researching. And this is where usually only one or two individuals in a party will shine and the rest sort of sit back and just wait for it to be finished. I don't recommend a research exercise as a skill challenge. Now, you may sort of think I've eliminated a lot of things here. Now, you can ignore me if you like, but I've always found they turn out to be the worst skill challenges in my opinion. Okay, now that we've talked about why you would use them, let's talk about how to create that skill challenge for your game. And I have refined down my notes for this to make it as simple as I possibly can. Design your skill challenge with a series of narrative events or obstacles. That's what we're aiming for. These are things the player characters have to overcome. So it's a narrative event or an obstacle of some kind. I consider them like scenes. They're part of a staged event. Define a clear goal for the whole skill challenge. Like, what's the goal ultimately for the whole skill challenge at the end? But also clearly define goals for each stage of that skill challenge, because we're going to have stages to our skill challenge, and you need to include a consequence for success and failure at each stage of that skill challenge and for the overall completion. There's a lot going on here. Involve everybody in the skill challenge with group checks. So wherever possible, get everybody involved. Now, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be just rolling dice, but it does mean that you want everybody involved in the skill challenge. Nobody gets to sit back and do nothing. Otherwise, what will happen is a few players and their characters, particularly with characters that have high skill modifiers, they will dominate the entire skill challenge and everybody else will be sitting back and waiting for it to finish. Don't have a really long skill challenge. I find that between 3 and 4 group checks or stages are probably the maximum you want. So 3 or 4 scenes is enough. Arrange different consequences for failing at each stage of the skill challenge if possible. If it makes sense narratively, then see if you can have different consequences. And the overall skill challenge, like you want different a consequence overall for that. So what sort of consequences can we use for failure? because that's really what we're looking for. I mean, the good things, you can impart bonuses if you want for being successful, but a lot of the emphasis is going to be on what happens if they fail overall the skill challenge, or if they fail a stage of the skill challenge. What can we do? Well, we can the loss of hit points. They could lose hit points. They could actually use or lose a hit dice. Spell slots could be expended. Gaining a condition of some kind. Exhaustion is a good one, particularly when you have to do something that's very strenuous, or even nothing that's mechanical, but more a story-related consequence that has implications later on. Those are all really good as consequences for your skill challenge. Events or obstacles that could or will end a skill challenge should be placed at the end of the skill challenge. Try not to put them in the middle or at the beginning. You need to make sure anything that you could potentially sort of shut the whole thing down, make sure it's placed at the very end of your sequence. Right, now that we've covered like how do you make it, we need to discuss like what are the player actions in a skill challenge? What does that look like? And there's a couple of different ways. I think a lot of people sort of focus in on just rolling dice rather than the other aspects of it. And so what I want to do is I want to highlight the things that are actually probably more important to focus on. First off, with player actions in a skill challenge. Explain that the players need to state the action the character makes. Not just pick a skill check to roll. You decide as the dungeon master what's appropriate to roll in terms of dice, and even if rolling dice is appropriate at all, you get them to state what action they are taking. That's all that's important. Try to use different skills and abilities in the skill challenge, but you don't have to avoid the same skill in a sequence if it makes sense to the story narrative. I know there's been a lot of talk, particularly with regard to the older 4E skill challenges, that we never duplicate the use of a skill. But we were not focusing in on just using the skill for the sake of using a skill, okay? So if it makes sense for whatever they're trying to do, then they can use that skill. It's wise to allow a secondary skill check to gain advantage or impart disadvantage or a bonus or a penalty to a group check, because you can include a wider range of potential skills and knowledge skills. So like you can actually widen and broaden things out. And this might include something other than just a dice roll. It might include something as like a class feature or a spell that might give them a benefit. Even the use of inspiration, the dice mechanics of inspiration, can be utilized during a skill challenge for obvious reasons, when you're rolling a 20-sided dice, that is. Skill challenges don't have to include an ability or skill check necessarily, but this is the design default. You can also try things like a saving throw if it makes sense, or an attack roll, or making no roll at all. Like there might be things that you can just do. You decide, I want to do this. It makes sense that you don't have to, it isn't actually that difficult to complete the task, so it's going to be successful. You just managed to come up with the right idea. Classes and race features are very useful for a skill challenge. Allow them to be used. Spells, magic items, the effects from them, clever ideas, the smart use of mundane equipment can result in an automatic success, or potentially replace the skill check you were planning to do for an individual, or even possibly the whole group check if you want. Be wary of players trying to get success for the whole group check with a single high skill check modifier, just because their character has it. I'm going to reiterate this quite a lot. Now, now that I've mentioned a whole lot of different things you can do, I want to just state right now, because if it wasn't clear, a skill challenge is probably not named in a manner that is actually useful to you. It's probably better to call it a challenge. That means a skill challenge doesn't mean you roll dice, okay? It doesn't mean you're making an ability check or a skill check. You can. There are other options. Always be open to the other options thing. That's actually far more important to your skill challenge. It will open things up significantly for you when you're running your game. Okay, let's deal with the skill challenge consequences. There's a bunch of consequences you need to tie into your skill challenge. Don't be married to the skill challenge being failed overall with a set number of failed checks, even if that's the usual method. So what you're trying to do is avoid breaking the narrative of your action scene overall. So with a simple check, you would probably have 4 successes before 2 failures as a overall for the entire skill challenge. If building it that way would be a problem and actually hamper the narrative, don't use that. You can still have a skill challenge without having that aspect there. Because remember, we still have individual consequences for each stage that will burn up resources, tax our player characters, and generally cause them strife. Okay, so they can still get themselves into trouble, and they can still be challenged without having to have an overall group check going on, or an overall set number. So that 4 to 2, or if you want to make it more complex, I know in the past people have talked about different complexities of skill challenges. That's actually the least important aspect, okay, even though we do use it sometimes. If a player chooses not to take part in a skill challenge, I want you to count that as an automatic failure for the individual checks that they need to make, and an auto failure towards a group check. They only have to have half the group succeed with any kind of group check anyway. But yes, if you have a player who decides, nah, my character's no good at this situation, I'm just not going to take part, they fail everything. They fail everything. They have to put themselves at risk. They have to be involved. Set a difficulty class or DC that makes sense for the character's action, not the character level. Now, that means you can have a DC 20 or 25 or even a 30 if you really must, if that seems like it would be appropriate. But you're not setting DC 10s because that's easy to perform. That would be a waste of your time generally. And you're not probably going to be setting a DC 5 because that's very easy. Okay, so you do not need to focus on the difficulty class number with your skill challenge because we have a different dial to deal with that. Adjust the consequences of failure to reflect the party and character levels. And this is what you really want to do. You're going to use the trap damage severity by level table in the Dungeon Master Guide on page 121. And what we're doing here is we are using that as a way of determining whether our skill challenge is too hard or too easy, not the DC for any kind of dice roll. So that means that if they fail, that you use the setback. Don't use the deadly or dangerous options, okay? Always use the smaller number for their level. And it doesn't matter if it's not removing, lots and lots of hit points if you're using the hit point determining aspect of it, because ultimately it doesn't matter if they drop to 0 hit points. We're not aiming to get them to 0 hit points. What we're trying to do is just challenge them and burn up some resources and make the whole scene interesting, right? The skill challenge is too hard, though, if a character with the least number of hit points, their maximum hit points. So the wizards and the sorcerers will probably have very few maximum hit points compared to any other member in the party. Your skill challenge is too hard if they would die, okay, if they fail every stage of the skill challenge, and you're using average damage. That you've overtaxed it if the character with the least number of maximum hit points and they failed every stage of that skill challenge would die outright. Then you've done too much, okay, and you need to tone it down a bit. That means that those who have a lot of hit points are probably not going to wind up unconscious, but there are other things that can happen. Like, depending on how you put your skill challenge together, you can wind up with all sorts of story stuff related going on here, or you might wind up with a whole lot of conditions they need to contend with as well. So that would be my advice to you. That's how you dial in your skill challenge. Like everything I do here, I have some miscellaneous recommendations, and I have some miscellaneous recommendations in this case. Don't break the narrative. Very important. Don't break the narrative of the scenes presented by the skill challenge. And let players come up with, you can let players come up with clever ideas to solve the skill challenge and interact with that narrative. But don't let players come up with a contrived rationale why something might work, or why they might use a particular skill check. If it makes no sense to you and it feels contrived and out of place, then don't allow it. Okay? If the skill challenge becomes a series of just skill checks, then it's most likely going to be a really poor experience for you as a dungeon master and the players. So what you want to do is be open to the idea of not engaging in a skill check or having a dice roll of some kind. Be open to using other options. This is why I say refer back to just ask them what they want to do, okay, to see if it's going to work. Avoid focusing on the mathematics of the game because that creates a lot more work for the dungeon master and it makes it much harder for the player characters to succeed when they have a smart idea. If they have a smart ideas always trump game mechanics. If it makes sense and it's clever and it makes sense, do it. Okay? Smart and clever always wins. Okay, that covers all the things that I wanted to say with regard to the skill challenge for your Dungeons and Dragons 5e game, or pretty much any kind of game. It's like this is how I would suggest going about building your skill challenge so it's successful. So please let me know in the comments what sort of skill challenges you have built, how they have worked for you. If you have any questions, this is the place to do it. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. Let's go into the chat. Let me just slow myself down because I've been going like pretty fast for the whole thing. I need to have a drink of water. You'll need to let me know if I talked too fast or because this is the second time I've run this. And so we are going to be doing some actual creation today, just like we did last time. Last time we made the Indiana Jones boulder trap from Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I said hi to West T, I said hi to Scott, I've said hi to Seeker, and Spirit Wolf is here. Hello Spirit Wolf, how's it going? Overboard, how's it going Overboard, Miniature Gaming. So Overboard, Joe, he is a patron. He supports me on YouTube to make sure I keep doing this particular program. This is the best way to actually support this program is actually on Patreon. Like that would be my advice, because everything that I do in these live streams gets turned into a documentation that you can just edit easily. It's not a PDF. And you can just change everything you want, but you get the basics that we worked on. And there's a lot of stuff that comes through every week. So by the end of the month, you're probably going to get quite a lot of stuff in your inbox. Anyway, otherwise, super chats and super stickers are also much appreciated. I'm going to refer to the poll in a second to see how we're doing with regard to what I have suggested today. I would suggest to those of you who are here, hi Cole, how's it going? Look, if you have some skill challenges that you have in mind that you would like built, like if you want me to stand out, if you want it to stand out, super chat and super sticker, I'll probably do it, certainly for the future, because this class will roll round in about a month and we'll do it again and we'll build a different skill challenge, or you can change the vein that I was going in and we'll do something else, but we'll see how we go. The dope mugs. Yes. So Cole. So this here is Xanathar's Guide, Dungeons and Dragons. So you can kind of see, I guess, this mug was purchased for me. So you can see it's got the beholder on it. If I just move my fingers out of the way, there we go. And I'm always, so I don't just like Dungeons and Dragons, I like Star Wars too, okay? Even though some of the stuff they've done recently I haven't liked that much. So I've also got The Mandalorian, and I've got my Mandalorian cup as well, for those of you who are wondering. And so, yeah, I drink a lot. I don't actually have a cup of my own cup that I put together. I don't actually have that. I just realised, which is it's a bit strange. Hi Fender. Now Fender is also a patron and supports me running this class, and yeah. So did I mention that Overboard has a YouTube channel that deals with maps and deals with terrain, miniatures, and reviews, and you could go and check out a lot of his stuff on his channel. You're trying to get yourself a tankard? Why not? Yeah. Now let's have a look at the poll. because we've got some work to do today, and there's a lot to be done. It's not going to get done if we just sit here and talk, right? So I have to actually start punching the keyboard soon. Do you want to make a sailing ship in Storm skill challenge for Dungeons and Dragons 5e? So in the past, I've made one of these. I tried looking for my old one. I couldn't find it, and I was a little bit frustrated. And so in the end, I'm like, okay, I'm going to accept that I can't find it and let it be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to build it from scratch. Okay, that's just how it is. I've already kind of looked at the sort of things you would normally deal with a storm, and I'm going to present them to you, and I'm going to let you guys decide which ones you like the most, and we'll just stick to 4. I think is probably the best. We won't probably have time to do too many. Last time the Indiana Jones boulder trap took quite a long time, and I had to do a lot of work after. So yes, that's 69% out of 13 people. Undecided 8%, fair enough. Just watching 23%. Right, let's get that 23% and that 8% into the. Yep, we definitely want to do this, right? That's the goal. Cool, blimey, that is a loud noise from a plane. Okay, so let me just now. What have I done wrong here? Oh. I'm going to just show you Arnold for a second while I grab my phone. Okay. All right, Arnold. Thank you for your assistance. I will not require you anymore. We will go over here and screen capture. That should have done it. Cool. And then we'll go over to this screen here. And we're going to go over to, where's my, this is the, okay, I don't know if you can see this. I'm hoping that you can. But the idea is that I have already sort of started the layout. So I've used a template, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. I will make this a bit bigger. You'll let me know if my face is in the way, because that sometimes happens, right? As well, I'm working through here, you can't see stuff. So I've made the words a little bit bigger so you can actually see what you're looking at. And what I've done is I've selected 4 things that I think would be suitable as action scenes to interact with as part of a sailing ship in a storm. That's basically what we're trying to duplicate. Just give me a second while I drink more water. And a lozenge might help too, as my voice is going to crack on me. Is my phone dying on me? What's happened here? Okay, it's alive again. All right, let's see if the phone will actually come to life properly. Come on, you. Kick it up. So yeah, start using your brain. Start thinking about what would be an interesting thing to include into a ship in a storm. That's what our first focus is. Okay. Cool, blimey. Everything's happening today. Okay. Hi, Josh. How's it going, Josh? Yeah. Well, see, what I'll do is I will highlight. I'm going to highlight the things that we want to do, that and how they sort of would interplay. Okay. Okay. So, I think I've caught up with everybody. No, maybe I haven't. Okay, so my phone is now deciding to have a tizzy fit. I don't know why, but it looks to me like we are now coming through. Okay, all right. How's it going, Josh, by the way? Right, so let's do some first things. We need some threats. Here are the threats that I've put forward. I'm going to put a rock or a reef that's ahead of the ship that might punch a hole in the ship's hull. In the ship's hull. So there's a rock or a reef ahead of sailing ship that might punch a hole in the ship's hull. So that's one way you could use. Okay. of the, maybe at the. Okay, the ship's mast is cracking and could break from strong winds. Okay, so I'm going to actually and widen this a little bit. I'm going to include not just the mast, I think, because Joe did mention high winds. So we're going to include the ship's sails are tearing. Tearing, tear. Why can't I spell tear? For some reason, suddenly I can't think of how to spell tear. Tearing. Oh, I'm having one of those that tearing, tying, tearing. Tearing. Ah, there we go. Tearing, and mast is cracking and could break from strong winds. Okay, so another thing that we're going to include here. We want to have a huge freak wave is threatening to slam to the side of the ship and flip it over, because that's quite a common thing to include in a storm, right? I also thought, now this, very rarely do you have lightning strike a ship. I looked up the reality of that actually happening, and it's kind of, thank you, Joe, for the word tear. I was struggling there for a second. It's extremely rare for lightning to hit a sailing ship, even to hit the mast. And it doesn't happen that much, even though people expect it to happen. But we can include it. Unless somebody can come up with a better thing to include in here, then I'm thinking that's what we'll do, is we'll use a lightning strike. So a lightning strike, lightning strikes the ship and executes part of the crew, knocking them out. That means they're no longer able to assist in the management of the ship, which is a bad thing, right? There are not enough crew members to stop the ship being swamped by high winds and tall waves. I thought that was probably a good second scene. Now, how we put this together is we have to make sure that whatever we do here is not going to wind up ending things. So here, the rock and the reef ahead of the ship, that would end our scene. If they wind up hitting the rocks, then that's all over. She's all over Grover, so we don't want that. That has to be in the last scene. So I'm going to take that. Now, for what I want you to do is, and I'll type this in now as a hashtag so that you guys know what I'm on about. What can PCs? What can you do to avoid? And we can go backwards on this, it's all right. Avoid a rock or reef. Okay. What can you do to avoid, come on, avoid the ship hitting a rock or reef? And we're going to go question mark here. Okay, so some actions. Is it going to go in? Send, baby. Send. There we go. All right. I'm going to put you to work. I'm going to move this down the bottom. This is our last scene. It can't go at the beginning. So we're going to go with a cut. Cut that. We're going to drop that into what is actually happening. This is scene 4. Now, you don't have to come up with a skill or the DC or anything. You just need to come up with what you think you could do. It should be relatively obvious, right? From that short description, what's going on here. And the next one, the ship's sails are tearing in the mast, and the mast is cracking, could break under strong wind. So I'm going to put this here in. This is going to be in the front. This is going to be our first scene. Piloting through shallow areas could be challenging. You'd need a spotter on either side, maybe. So we're talking about you're talking about somebody using a perception check to spot the safest route. That's probably what you're looking at. there, Joe? Correct? Yes, no, you let me know. Yes, no, let me know. My gosh. Here we go. Let's do that. Paste. So we've got that one there. So I'm going to go down here. If you can't see anything at any particular time, you let me know. So, so individual skills, alternative solutions, consequences of group check. Okay, so here we go. Let's type in some stuff. Vendor is going to be hard at work today. I can see it now. So the first thing is a characters can act as spotters on the front of the ship or in the crow's nest to find the best route through shallow waters. So we're going to go with let's go with a DC 15, which is moderately hard, a 15 perception check. Okay. Right, so that is our first action there. And I will go there. We've got that. I think that's what you were after there, Joe. Yeah. Destroying the rocks from afar or turning the sails by force if there is not enough time. Okay, so turning the sails by force. The only way to turn a ship is with a rudder. So what you can do is you can take down sails so you're not moving too fast. That's probably part of what you're talking about with regards to sails. So that's not a bad idea. That can work. Taking down the sails. Sails to reduce speed and make it easier to control the ship. The ship through the reef. Okay, we need to know what do you think would be suitable to do that. Like if we're taking down the sails to reduce speed to make it easier to control the ship through the reef. I think that's what you were after, Fendar. Now also turning the ship. Characters can. Now remember, it doesn't need to be just dice rolls. If you can think of an alternative solution as well, that might be a spell that might help in this situation. I don't know how you're going to destroy the rock, so you need to give me a bit more. It's like, how would they destroy the rock? I don't know exactly what you'd do. So if you've got something in mind, great. The characters can try to turn the ship with the rudder to avoid protruding rocks with a, let's go with an athletics check. Athletics, bracket strength. Strength check. With a DC. Decide on a DC that you think would be suitable for this. Okay, like don't say 10 because 10 is easy, but it's got to be something higher than 10. So what is that going to be? Okay, okay, something like that. I think we've got that good. Cool, cool. So I got Fendar's ideas. Yes, we've got that. A jib may assist a little in turning the ship with the right wind. Miraz, yes. So Miraz is also a patron who supports me on Patreon, and to make sure these classes keep going, by the way. I'm going to move this up so you can see a little bit more. If the party has a high-level caster, they could use Disintegrate on the rock. Okay, yes, good. Well done. Nicely done. Nicely done, buddy, there. Oh, good, 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 good. Okay, so let's go here. The spell. Disintegrate. Disintegrate can be used to destroy a rock, giving automatic success. Now, why am I saying automatic success? I can't remember how Disintegrate works, but I'm inclined not to have them make a what is Disintegrate? Is it a saving throw? Does it make sense that a rock would make a saving throw against Disintegrate? Like, I don't think that it does. I think we should just, like, it's a high-level spell, we should just let them have it. If they're going to disintegrate rocks, like, sweet. They can only do one at a time, and they can only do so many, so it's, like, it shouldn't be a big deal. I feel like we just do that. Where are you? Disintegrate. It's a 6th level spell. And it requires a what? Does a lot of damage. When it's failed on a target, we can see the target must be a creature, an object, or yes, it can be an object. So it makes a dexterity saving throw. Rocks don't make dexterity saving throws, people. So it's automatic success. That's what we're doing. The spell Disintegrate can be used to destroy a rock, giving automatic success. That's on an individual check. Like, so that's a big expenditure for somebody who's deciding to do that. So let's do this. Let's give that a, that's one of the things. That's one of our alternatives. Nicely done, people. Very good, very good. Let's go here. Let's go over here. All right, so I'm going to keep dropping in these different scenes. Now, jib. So here we can. So what we can do here, a jib may assist in a little bit of turning. So Miraz, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to add in a little bit that you've added here. So we're going to change this, taking down the sails or adjusting the jib to reduce speed and make it easier to control the ship through the reef. So again, I need to know what skill or ability check are we using here, or are we deciding that if they decide to do that, they can just get automatic success. So you have to decide, you know, how difficult is it to do that in the middle of a storm. I would imagine it's quite difficult, so you need to decide, what's that going to look like? What do you got here, Joe? You could cast Tiny Fortress on rocks and immediately dispel it. A lot of technicality isn't an attack. Now, what are we trying to do here with Tiny Fortress? Cast Tiny Fortress? What are you trying to do here, mate? I'm kind of perplexed. I'm curious, but I'm still perplexed. What's this Tiny Fortress? What does Tiny Fortress do? Huh. Please remind me when an hour is up that I need to go and take a break, because otherwise I'll just keep going, and that's not good for me. Those toilet breaks are actually very helpful. Tiny Fortress. Is it in the player's handbook? That's another question. Tiny. I don't see it. Tiny Fortress. I'm not sure what to do with that, Joe. Okay, so look, let's back up a little bit. So you need to come up with what skill or ability are we going to use for taking down the sails or adjusting the jib? What would be appropriate for that? What are we going to be using the survival skill? Are we using dexterity, a dexterity check? Are we using acrobatics? Like, what do you think is sufficiently sensible for this check? Okay. And then what DC do we need to be controlling this rudder? It must be pretty hard in a storm to control the rudder. So like controlling the wheel. Right, let's just dump in some of these other scenes. A freak lightning storm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here. And I'm going to switch this and we're going to put this in as our second scene. Cut. This is our second scene here. Somebody's added in something. Control water can change the flow of the water and help turn the ship. So Fender, we're going to use control water on the freak wave because we're about to put the freak wave in. And that's when control water would make a lot more sense, would it not? Let's include that as something we can use. And that'll be scene 3. So we've got scene 1. Ship's sails are tearing and mast is under strain. Lightning strike. And this one here. This one is... Oh, don't do that, Fred. Don't do that. Scene 3. Paste. A huge freak wave is threatening to slam into the side of the ship and flip it over. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. Now, flip it over, or actually we want to swamp it. Because potentially, that saying flip it over means we end the scene, does it not? So a huge freak wave is threatening to slam into the ship and swamp it. And swamp it, or flip it over, depending on what we're trying to achieve. But I think swamp it is probably better. Now, control wet water. Fendar's alternative idea for this is actually very good. So let's take that. Now the control water spell. Control water. There'll be a few other things too. Tsunami, is it tsunami? I think there's a spell called tsunami that might be able to be used to sort of a counter a huge freak wave. Where are we? Control. Got to find these things quickly, and I'm having trouble finding the page number. Control. There we go. It's right in front of me. There we go. It is got a long range. It's a 4th level spell. The control water spell can be used to let's reduce the size of the water, of the wave. Part the wave. Redirect the flow. We can part the water. Okay, the control water spell can be used to part the huge wave, gaining automatic success. Now, that doesn't mean that one person casting that spell will solve the whole problem, because everybody else has got to do something as well. But that means that somebody doing that, they don't have to roll any dice. You just get it. Okay, so let's do that. I don't know that it makes sense to be doing anything else. I think this spell just works. It's not like you roll any dice for this. It just works. It's one of those spells where it does things. Okay, yeah, that does. So that's good. We've got that. That did well. Nice job there. Okay, now I'm looking through here. The sailor background should factor into any PC having that. Yes, it should, Miraz. So that's something we need to consider. If you are a sailor or a pirate, if the sailor or pilot background, you need to have something factoring in. So what we can do is we can type here in the top, any character with the sailor or pirate background gets advantage on any dice rolls. How's that sound? Yeah? Is that what you were thinking? That was kind of what I was thinking. Whereas if this is relevant to you, good, because I know you're a patron, so you're going to find this coming up on Patreon as a document you can fiddle with later. So here we go. So let's say any character. Okay. Additional notes. Additional notes, any additional benefits. Additional benefits. No, not doing that. Any character with the sailor or pirate background has advantage on any D20 checks during this action sequence. Does that sort of answer what you were trying to get at? I think that does. So let's go with bold. We'll underline that so I know that I've done that there. We need to describe the actual whole event and break this down. So we've got sequences in here, and we've got a few actions that are taking place, but I haven't actually spelled out a lot of the other stuff. Now, Spirit Wolf, you've said athletics. What is athletics relating to? What are we targeting? What are you deciding that's supposed to be doing? Because just the word athletics doesn't tell me very much. Remember, there's a lag on this, so when you type stuff in, I don't know what it's related to. You have to sort of specify a bit more. Water, air, elemental. So Spirit Wolf, what is that? What are we doing with that? Yeah, I need to know a bit more about what we're trying to do here. Hollow Ranger, how are you? I'm glad you could join as well. We are hard at work here making a skill challenge today. Fender, you think that makes a lot of sense? Exactly, advantage. Yes, okay, so we got the right bit for that. Also, any character with proficiency in water vehicles. Yes, let's include that as so. Any character with the sailor or pirate background or with the sailor, comma, sailor slash, I'll just put a slash in there, I guess, slash pirate background or proficiency in water vehicles. Proficiency, oh come on Freddie, get it. Proficiency in water vehicles. Has advantage. Let's switch that out for the actual right spelling. Sorry, I brought that up too high, so you can't see what I'm doing there. I apologize. Okay, the Tiny Fortress does 10d10 damage on anything. Oh, anything that's under it when it appears. Could crush a rock or coral in 10 to 20 squares. Maybe. Okay. Okay, so let's add that to crushing the rock. Where was that supposed to be? This is the rock that is in the way, right? There's a rock or reef in the way, so we're going to put here Jib Athletics. Okay, good to know. Thank you, Spirit Wolf. Okay, so Welcome Ranger. Right, I'm showing that. I don't know why YouTube insisted on holding that comment, but okay, here we go. So, back to the Tiny Fortress. Casting the Tiny Fortress. Fortress spell on a outcropping rock will crush it, and then dismissing it, and then dismiss it grants automatic success. Good. So you've got a few alternatives. You guys are getting the idea of this, of an outcropping crushing. And okay, outcropping rock will crush it. Will crush it, and then dismissing it. Okay, so I think that's got that. I need to go back and sort of tidy up the front end of this, but you guys have done a pretty good job. And so now somebody said something about the jib, Spirit Wolf. I believe this is probably related to controlling the jib. So where is this one? Taking down the sails or adjusting the jib to reduce the speed and making it easier to control a ship through the reef. Okay, so reef with a DC. Well, it's okay. What's the DC going to be for doing that? Let's just make it DC 15, unless somebody has a better idea. DC, it's going to be quite difficult. Let's make it a little bit harder. Going to make it a little bit harder. Okay, a little bit harder with a DC 18 athletics check. Now, athletics or survival, I'm going to put there. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because kind of survival might play into this a little bit. It's certainly got a physical element to it, but knowing how to do things quickly and efficiently could also work quite nicely. Okay. Elemental for control of the boat or sea. Yeah, so elemental for control of the boat or sea. So what are we trying to do there? You're going to have to explain to me I'm still a little lost. Are we conjuring? Is there a spell that we're using to do this? Are we conjuring an elemental? Is that what we're doing? Drop the anchor and drink some ale. Probably not a great idea. Fender. Ship sails about to tear and break. Maybe using the mending cantrip can help. Yes, good. Well done. Well done. Let's go back to the top here. If I ever manage to get a chance to actually type in our individual failures and group stuff, then I will. But we're going to keep going with this line of thought because you guys are working hard. So let's go with... now, it's not actually stupid to drop an anchor, but you wouldn't usually do that unless you are off the coast and the seabed's close enough to be able to hook onto something. Otherwise, it's probably a bad idea. You could wind up putting yourself down. But if you're close to the coast and you're in a bay, then yes, you would do that. Okay, so next. Casting the mending spell repeatedly, which you can do repeatedly on the sails or mast to repair them. Gives automatic success. Okay. An elemental familiar. Is there elemental familiar? Is there a spell called elemental familiar? I feel like I'm not being able to include your idea because I'm a little bit summons of air and water elemental or control boat or water around the boat. Okay, so there must be a conjure or summon spell that does that, right? I just need to know what the actual name is. Gives automatic success. Right, so description of the action sequence. Let's call this action sequence. the player's characters, sailing ship. I'm going to go down a little bit. Sailing ship has been caught in a powerful ocean storm that threatens the lives of the crew and could sink the ship. The characters must save the ship and the crew. So that is what we're trying to achieve right there. Now, conditions for... Now, what have we got here? Questions for you, Fred. Do these players have a wish spell? Well, it doesn't matter. You can put down, yes, the wish spell can be cast to do something. But here's the thing, like, if you're dealing with something like the wish spell and players that can cast the wish spell, like, this whole thing is a waste of your time. Do you know what I mean? 1 hour break. Yeah, cool. Cuts the ropes to save the sails and mast. That's actually very clever. So, and I don't think that's actually going to be that hard to do either. So let's go with here, alternatives, casting a spell. This is this one here. Let's go here, and yes, then I'll take a break. But I'm going to give you guys some homework while I'm gone. There's another factor I need to build into here, which I had thought about really hard before I sort of started this, but we'll do this. If a character is in the crow's nest, they can cut the rigging, ropes to the sails to save the mast from breaking, or the sails. Okay. This gives... No. We'll give them an attack roll, shall we? Should we give them an attack roll? With an attack roll, with slashing blade against AC. Let's make that really standard 10. That's it. It's going to be, so it's about how many ropes can you slash. That's probably where we're going with this. Okay. I think that's actually what I think you were aiming for, was the first scenario here. So let me just, while I am gone, you guys are going to come up with some skill checks that can be made for dealing with the sails and the mast tearing. Okay, that's what I'm going to give you. This is the first task in the whole thing. I gave you the last task and you guys did really well. So let's go with here, hashtag what can you do with skills or abilities. Now you don't have to go into a lot of detail, and I'm happy for you to keep going with the alternatives. That's fine too. What can you do with skills or abilities to save the mast and sails from strong winds. Okay. I'm putting that in now. So I'm going to leave this up so you can see it. You can see that section, so you can see what the actual thing is that we're dealing with here. Rather than put up my scene and get Arnold to look after you, go take my break, come back. And then we're going to tie in some of the stuff, because I have also got to type in some consequences for the group, some consequences for the individuals, and sort of show you what that would look like as well. So don't go anywhere. 5 minutes, I'll be back. Okay. Yes, Fender, athletics are taking the sails. Sounds like a very good idea. So let's do that. Okay, so let's go with a character can take in the sails. Sails, sails with a let's just see what I want to do here. Okay, now hang on. Bracket strength. Okay, let's do this, because we're really duplicating a lot of that already, and which is fine. I know a lot of people are like, you can't duplicate something, and I'm like, yeah, well, you can actually. You can, because we're doing it now. If it makes sense, then do it. If it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. So a character can take in the sails with a DC 18 athletics, strength, or survival check. I think that's probably fine for an individual check. Let's put that in there. And we're doing all right so far. Hello, Scott. How are you doing, Scott? What do you got here? I was going to suggest athletics to change course and remove the pressure from the sails. So you're going to use athletic strength to steer the to control the rudder. So that I think we were dealing with down here. Now that's a freak wave. That's the rocks. We were dealing with something here. This is turn the ship. Here we go with a so we're actually duplicating this again. I'm not going to go with survival for this. I'm just going to go with copy. And we'll do this. So we're using a skill check, which is very similar to the other one, but they're doing a different thing, which is fine. Which is actually perfectly fine. Does it need to be that high? I'm going to make it a 15. I feel like if you're just trying to control that, we should make it a 14, shall we? 14. Okay. So thank you, Scott. I got it. It's marked down. I was waiting for you guys to say, I mean, I can add the stuff in myself, but that sort of defeats the purpose of you guys taking part in making the stuff for yourself. Intelligence, how and where to get more rope at the proper angle to help support the mast from incoming wave detection direction. No, it's not really I mean, it looks like a duplication, but we're giving it a different DC because I think controlling the rudder with the wheel is probably going to be easier than trying to take down, adjust the jib and take down sail. I think that's probably going to be a bit more difficult because you could try to move around a moving ship, whereas trying to hang on to the wheel is a lot easier. So it's not a duplication, Scott. You're actually fine. You've filled in the gap where you had to fill in. Okay, so don't worry about that at all. And we are going to start putting some spaces and stuff so I can actually see where everything is. Okay, so now nature check to recognize which direction the wind is blowing continuously may be. Navigator's tools to sort obstacles or control the helm more precisely. Navigator's tools is more all about okay, but here back to your nature check thing. A character can make can try to figure out the best direction to drive the ship so the mast and sails aren't destroyed with let's go with now you said nature, so I think we can just go here. I'm just going to go here, copy this bit, paste. Let's give them a fairly easy check for nature. It's nature. And no, that's too easy. Let's make it a 13. Nature. It's nature's intelligence. Intelligence or survival check. I think that's what you were trying to duplicate here. Navigator's tools. I feel like I'm not sure what we're going to do with navigator's tools because navigator's tools is something that it's like it's plotting your course. So I don't know that navigator's tools is necessarily going to be that useful. I'm just going to write down here under alternative navigator's tools for now. Question mark. I don't know what to do with it yet. Okay. Let's go underline this bit. underline. Let's go here. Okay, so there is a line that I need to put in here before I forget, and then so don't stop putting your 2 cents in, because your 2 cents is actually really important. But we've got to put in a sequence here about the group check side of things, because everybody's on the ship, so whatever happens to the ship will happen to everybody on the ship. Okay, so we need to make sure we have a sequence about what's going on with that. So here we go. We're going to go in here. We're going to cut that. It's not gone. It's just going to drop it down below. Paste. Goal of the skill challenge. Okay, so we need to have a very specific goal to ensure that we don't mess up the group must succeed on 3. The party must succeed on 3 group checks before getting 2 failures. Otherwise, the ship starts to sink. If the party are successful, the ship doesn't sink and they can continue onward. If the party fails, come on, Fred. Fails overall, they will have to get into lifeboats. Okay, so I think that is lifeboats. There we go. This is what we're aiming for. As I said before, like, you've got to be careful about setting up this sort of thing. But in this case, I think it's going to be fine. I think we can do that. So let me just see. Somebody has written in some stuff in there since I've been typing all that out. So let's scroll on down here and see what we have. So athletics is a strength check, but it's just there's some skill involved, and I don't think that we need to differentiate that. I know a lot of people like but even lifting something really heavy isn't just strength. It's actually it's athletics. You have to know how to lift. So if you're on a ship, you should know how to move stuff around that requires you to use strength anyway. Understanding leverage. Okay, so I was going to suggest athletics to change course and remove pressure from the sails. Okay, so here we got. I can take taking the sails, right, to figure out the best direction to drive the ship to drive the ship so the mast aren't okay. Okay, all right. So you're suggesting that's so basically what we're talking about is changing direction. We actually have the mechanics for that already because we have it from the rock. So what we'll do is we'll take this, copy it, and we're going to adjust it a little bit, obviously. And so changing course. Okay, so I'm going to set this DC much more difficult. It's much more difficult where you've got sail up. It's actually really, the best route is always to take sail down. So let's go with say a 17. Okay. Characters can try to turn the ship and with the rudder to take pressure off the sails with an athletics strength check. Actually, I think we'll just leave it the same. Is it going to be any harder than trying to maneuver it around a rock? I don't know that it actually is. What did I do here? I can try to avoid with a... Okay. Alright, so I've reduplicated a bit of this. So let's get rid of that. Okay. So we've got a duplication here. That's not actually terrible, so don't freak out. For any of those of you who are like, oh, well, it kind of looks the same. If it makes sense, you do it. If it makes sense, you do it. Okay. Now, let me just have a look down here. Okay, so what else? Okay. Intelligence, how and where to tie more ropes at a proper angle to help support the mast from incoming. So Joe, what I'm going to do here with your first thing is under alternative solutions, because I know what you're thinking. And what about characters can tie a long length of rope around the mast to strengthen it. I know this, I'm typing this in because one of my players tried to do this because I've run this type of skill challenge before. It can tie a long length of rope around the mast to strengthen it so it doesn't break. And I don't know if I gave them a check. I think the DC I decided was a 10. So I'm sure I want to just, do I want to bother with a DC 10? Under pressure, there's always that chance of failure, isn't there? Let's put in a DC 10. I'll put in a DC 11 since I'm so against a DC 10. We've got an AC 10, so I have reneged slightly on my, I don't like that sort of thing, but here we go. So let's go with this. We'll go copy. So they've got to use a bit of equipment, but we're going to make the DC very easy. How's that with easy? Check. All right. Using equipment is always a good idea. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But you can tying off ropes to help support it. There is a bit of duplication going on here. I'm just trying to think. Characters can tie a length of rope around the mast to strengthen it so it doesn't break. Repositioning ropes. Okay. Can tie a long... this is an intelligence check. So this is actually going up here. Okay. So repositioning ropes, rigging ropes for the sail and mast. Mast to help support them. Repositioning and adding. Rigging ropes for the sails and mast to help support them so they don't break with what is it? Intelligence with a what? With a DC. I don't know what DC to set this at. DC. Let's make it 14. So I guess here with this, is there a skill that would be associated with that? Intelligence. I don't know that there necessarily is. I've put that in there. Okay, we've got that tied down. Tied down. We need to move on to another sequence. And I haven't done any of the failure conditions yet. So lightning strike. This is going to be quite interesting. So I'm going to type this in a second. Flying continuously made navigator's tools, obviously trying to control the how more precisely. Navigator tools. I think what we're going to do with navigator tools is, I know what you're trying to do here. My brain is still a mess, Fender. I know where you're trying to go with this. Nature check to recognize which direction. Did we do that already? I thought we had a nature check already in here somewhere for something. And that's probably from, is it from, I can't remember where. I'm sure we had a nature check already somewhere. Why can't I find it? Nature check. All we got to hit here. Figure out the best direction. Okay. Okay. If a character has navigator tools, tools proficiency, they get advantage on the dice roll. I think that's what we need to do with that. I think that's what we'll go with. Because you're assuming that if you've got proficient with navigation tools, then you probably know about the wind, right? So you should be getting some sort of benefit. Okay, all right. See, that's it. In rare instances, you could drop the drow and sea anchor, which fills with water to slow the ship or change direction. Okay, so this is stop the ship, water to slow the ship or change direction. Okay. So I'm just going to write in here, drop. I need to give you a different task now. I don't know what this is called exactly is, or sea anchor. Sea anchor, did I get it? No. Anchor to slow the ship. I'm going to come back to that. 12 Ziggy, how's it going? If the mast broke, think they could reset the mast with a woodworking tool. Strength in the middle of a storm, probably not. The fabricate spell, yeah, automatic success. I see what you're going. So you're trying to think, well, can we use woodworking tools in the middle of a storm? I'm just going to write down here for now. Woodworker tools. Question mark. We'll come back to that. I need to give you something else to work with, because I think we need to move on to the next scene, because I'm going to run out of time and we actually want to get most of the actions done, which leaves me to fill in the gaps in terms of consequence. Extra ropes. Sleight of hand. Yeah, we could include that as well. So that is... or sleight of hand. I'm going to put a big question mark there, but I'll put sleight of hand underneath there anyway. Okay, so I need to give you a new task, because obviously you guys are burning out on that one, and we move on to the another scene. So that's first scene. We've done most of the second scene. We've got the second scene to go. Last scene's done. That's scene 2, scene 3. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one here. Lightning strike. Here we go. What can you do for the crew who have been... come on, Fred, get it right. Electrocuted by lightning. Lightning. So, hashtag, here it is. Let's move on to scene 2. I know we're looking a bit messy in scene 1 and in the last scene, but it's all right. We just need to get some of the basics in here so that we're ready to smash away at the rest of it. So I'm moving us forward. Okay. Let's go down. And now skills. We're going to be getting some stuff here. What I'm going to suggest. This is what I'm going to put down, whether you agree with me or not. Characters can tend to crew injuries and stabilize. Dying members with a... Now, what was I going to think? With a... I could do this with a... with a DC 10 medicine check. Now, can I just say, for those of you who know how I feel about 10s in this game, the only reason I'm using medicine and it's a 10 is because the rules state that if you make a DC 10 medicine check, you stabilize a dying creature. Okay, that's the only reason I'm using the 10 in this case. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Some alternative uses to trying to help. So the fact is, if we don't have enough crew that are functional, then bad things happen. And Fendar's caught on already. You've already mentioned the thing I was going to suggest next. Wisdom check. So we've got a DC 10 medicine check. So that's a basic check that we can make. I'm going to go with alternatives. The healer's kit I'm going to consider that alternative, okay? So it's not in the main sort of bracket under things, because it's got its own sort of special thing going on. Did I bold that? I think I bolded that. Okay, so here we go. So this is what I'm going to write here. Using a healer's kit on the crew. The crew crew's injuries, grants automatic success and gets them back to work. Okay, why have I done this? Somebody must know. It's because the healer's kit gives you automatic success on a DC 10 medicine check in a fight. This is why I'm doing that, okay? For any of you who are like, oh, why is he doing that? Like, why be so beneficial to the healer's kit? Because the healer's kit is that good. So it should be used that way. So let's make sure it's there. There's another thing you can do. Alternatives. For those of you who haven't sort of still struggling with the idea of what we can do. So here's the scenario that you're dealing with, okay, if it's not clear. Lightning strikes the ship and electrocutes part of the crew, knocking them out. So they're not necessarily dead, but they're either knocked out or unconscious. Knocked out or dying. There are not enough crew members to stop the ship being swamped by high winds and tall waves. So we don't want that to cause us too much grief. So what we're going to do is we're going to include the healer's kit, gets its automatic success on our DC 10 wisdom or medicine check, and that gives a character automatic. So if all characters are carrying medicine healer's kits, they're going to be sweet with the situation. But let's say casting a healing spell like gives automatic, oh come on Fred, automatic success like, so cure wounds, good berry. What else? Healing word. Healing word. Sorry, I'm going to bring this up a little bit. It's a bit hard for you to see. Healing word. Is there any other spells? Oh, healing. Is it called heal or healing? I can't remember. Feel like they would need a quick triage of injury. Yeah, so not everybody's necessarily going to be, but in terms of like the key number of individuals that you need, this is what we're trying to duplicate. So it's not like every person on the ship is necessarily going to be sweet as. What we're trying to duplicate is the concept behind it. This is kind of try to deliberately favor the healers in the group rather than those people who have high acrobatics and athletic skills, because you tend to wind up aid. That's actually not a bad idea. Aid. Let's put aid in there. Come on, Fred, aid. Aid. What does aid do? I can't even remember what aid does. It gives you temporary hit points, doesn't it? Aid gives you temporary hit points. Tough. Choose the 3 critical range, and each creature has hit point. Yeah, aid. Let's do that. Yeah, aid. Is there another one called heal? I think it's another one called heal. If anybody can remember what the heck those spells are, the healing spells are. Heal, 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 heal. Can't find it. Always a hassle. Lay on hands. Todd. Nice one, Todd. Let's add that as its own thing. A paladin using lay on hands gets automatic success. So you'll notice that the things that require them to use spells, class features that are depleting their resources, I'm giving a lot of that stuff automatic success over rolling the dice. Whereas rolling a dice, there's a chance of failure. Whereas with these things, I'm deliberately making them better because I want them to use them up. Okay, using lay on hands gets automatic success to heal injured crew. Okay, Now, I think that's got it. Heal. I believe there's a spell called heal. And for the life of me, I am sure... There it is, heal. It is called heal. It's a very good spell, but heal. Heal. Come on, Fred. Heal. Heal. Now, this won't not necessarily mean very much in terms of the overall skill challenge itself, but I'm going to add it in here, add it in anyway. The number of hit points restored by a spell reflects the number of crew assisted. Ultimately, in the end, it doesn't actually mean very much. Okay, I've only put that in there to as a guide for help your dungeon masters thinking, because just because a person's running around stabilizing or using a medicine check to sort of plug holes in people and so forth, or help them out with their DC 10, doesn't mean they can't affect multiple individuals. But I'm putting this in as an entry if dungeon masters want to do something with it. Does that make sense? How's it going, Big Clue? So I think we've got a pretty good lineup with regard to that, which means we probably should tackle the last, the third sequence. That huge freak wave that's about to hit the ship. Energy lightning on a crew that got hit, that are able to be... Well, they're not going to be... Then I don't know that we can do much with that because it's kind of too late. We're not going to get hit by lightning twice. But I'll put it down. Casting protection from energy. The key thing with the first scene, for those of you who haven't figured it out, is get the sails down. Like if in a storm, you take down as much sail as you possibly can. That puts less stress on the mast. It puts less stress on your sail. You want to run as with they actually have, and this is what I didn't actually mention this, but I will mention it. You can actually put up the storm sails. There are actually sails designed for a storm, right? So that take in the sails and replace them with storm sails. I forgot. I have done a bit of research on how sailing in a storm works, so I should have added that in. So now let's get on to another question. I feel like we've done pretty well with this. We've only got one check that we're using in this case with regard to that, which kind of makes sense. That's fine. That happens sometimes. But let's go into this one. A huge freak wave is threatening to slam into the side of the ship and swamp it or flip it over. Now, it's swamp it if we still got a chance that they will succeed, okay? We can flip the ship over and then they got to get into lifeboats if they've already failed one of the group checks. And this is the second one it's going to be. So we've got a little bit of, we're opening it up a little bit. So let's do this one here. Starting a fire, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. To put out fires. I didn't actually stipulate that it had started some fires. I just said it electrocuted the crew. So here we go. Lightning strikes the ship and electrocutes part of the crew, knocking them out, or knocking them out, or making them unconscious. A few fires are started on the ship's ship's deck, sails and rigging. Okay. So we also have the fires need to be put out. What we have actually done is tied in another scene. Because if you put too many things into one scene, it actually gets really complicated. It's very easy to get a bit... I am holding out a little bit on you, Joe. I am holding out a lot on you. Okay, absolutely. So let's put that there, which means you need to have some way of putting out the fires. Yep. Now I'm just thinking about this. No, if I put this in, it is going to make that whole thing, it actually has to, it needs to be a separate entry. Otherwise, it's going to really confuse the shit out of everybody. Good idea, but I'm going to cut it. Okay? I'm going to cut it. It's a good idea, but it's like another scene, and there's just not going to be time to put it in. So we won't mess with it. That's fine. Let's go into the third scenario, huge freak wave. Okay, what do you do if a huge freak wave will swamp the ship? Question mark. And we've already got the control water spell coming in here. So for those of you who are like, what's going on here? Yeah. So let's deal with what the heck we can do with that. And drop that down. And drop that down again. And we need to have something that will allow us to sort that problem out. Now we've already probably got a mechanic that will partly solve that problem. And that was turning the ship using the rudder. But we're duplicating a lot of these skills over and over again by doing that. Okay, so let's have a look here. No. Okay. Right, here we go. So I'm going to take this statement and then make some adjustments. We're going to copy it, go back to 3. Paste. So, character can try to turn the ship. Has anybody got it? Has anybody got it? Somebody's laughing. I like that you said earlier, summon or own freak wave tsunami. Is there a spell called tsunami? I'm pretty sure there is. Could we not use a tsunami against a tsunami? Like, could we not do that? Everyone should have to make a dexterity check to avoid falling prone if the wave hits the ship. Yep. Would be a super freak. Yeah, there's a lot of strength checks going on here, a lot of athletics checks, which tends to happen in an action scene. But again, we can sort of adjust and modify things a little bit. A water weird. What are we doing with a water weird? For 7-year-olds, pick something they like. Make it up as you go. They will play along with you. In fact, they'll do most of they'll do more stuff for you than you can help. Can you imagine? Like, that I can't really answer your question if in the middle of trying to build a skill challenge. It's probably not going to work. Shape water, a cantrip to mitigate damage. Yes, good, nice, nicely done. I agree. Let's do that. Shape water, cantrip to shift some water out of the wave for, like, how much impact should a cantrip have? We'll decide based on a level 4 spell and a cantrip, Tsunami, I think they might, yeah. So a character can try to turn the ship into the wave. That's what you normally do when a wave is coming towards you and it's going to hit the side of the ship. You turn into the wave. Turn the ship into the wave with a DC. Well, that is going to be a, let's make that a let's make that a little bit easier. I don't want to make it too easy though. That's the thing. Like, here we go. So let's go with a, is it 14, 15, 14, 15? I'm going to just leave it for now. It doesn't matter. So we've got a skill for that. There may be something else that you can think of. And if you can't, that's fine too. Let's go with that there, that idea, that's good. Tsunami, let me find this spell. If I can find the spell, then it might help. I think a lot of you are starting to get the gist of what we're trying to do here, so that's always nice too. Like, you know, if you kind of like, okay, now I see there's a lot more that we can do. Tsunami. Okay, here it is. It's a page 284. Tsunami. What the hell does tsunami do? A wall of water springs into existence at a point you choose within range. You can make the wall up to da-da-da. The wall lasts for the duration. When the wall appears, each creature within the area, who cares about that stuff? Turns the wall apparently appears, da-da-da, make okay, let's use tsunami. Tsunami is a level 8 spell. Like so it's a big deal to be expending it. Tsunami. So casting tsunami and casting the tsunami spell, and directing it into the freak wave. Mitigates its impact on the sailing ship, granting automatic success. Okay, so let's see. That's that. I think that worked out well. Let's see what else we got here. Maybe something like Fireball could evaporate some of the water. Oh, maybe. Water walking spell. What are we going to do with the water walking spell? I'm not sure what we're supposed to be doing with water walking spell. I mean, you throw it out there, but I don't know what to do with it. I can just write it in, but I don't know what to do with it. That's the thing. Water. What are you going to do? You're going to walk up to the big wave and say, "Can you go away?" I'm not sure what to do with it, Scott. Shape water. Okay, I think it would have the tsunami. Yes. Water walking fireball. Fireball. A big question. Oh, put 2 question marks there. I'm not sure about that one. What else have we got here? Double damage. Good idea. Yeah. Wouldn't the PCs at the helm need to have navigation tools or vehicle water skills? Not necessarily, but it would certainly benefit them. You know, we actually talked about that big clue at the top. Like if you have proficiency in water vehicles, or you're a sailor or a pirate, then you get advantage on any dice roll that's made. So that's there. Okay. You could use a spell like Control Wind. Control Wind. Control Wind is there a Control Wind spell? That might not apply to this, but it might apply, big clue, to the first scene. Is there Control Wind? There probably is a Control Wind spell. I just haven't... Control Wind. What is there? Control. Please, somebody remind me. Is there actually a Control Wind spell? Control. Conjure. Conjure Elemental. There is a Conjure Elemental spell. Somebody was talking about elementals before. And let's add in conjure a water elemental. Conjuring a water elemental to help divert. Is it divert? Divert the huge wave. Okay. So casting the conjure. Casting the conjuring spell to summon a water elemental to help with divert. Why can't I get it? Divert. Okay, huge wave. Gust of wind. Isn't there gust of wind as a spell as well? Control water, control wind. I don't remember. I don't think there is a control weather. Control weather would actually go into the top one with the wind, wouldn't it? Control weather. Oh, we've got quite a lot going on here. So we can't add in everything under the sun, but you guys are definitely getting the hang of this. We've done that. Gust of wind. Gust of wind would apply to something else, though, wouldn't it? Okay, I'm going to run out of time. I have run out of time. So I think what I'm going to need to do is going to wrap it up here. Yeah, so I'll have to control wind. I'll have to figure that out and do a bit of research. So I'm only really looking at the player's handbook right now. Okay, so I'm going to have to put in all of the group and individual consequences. So, for example, the first scene, which is the ship here for the group. If the sails tear or the mast breaks, then that would be bad. That's what our success failure with the group is. Individually, what would it look like? What we can probably do is we can apply, if they fail, then we give them exhaustion. It's just too exhausting. So a level of exhaustion would be probably smart as an individual consequence, no hit point loss. The second scene, the lightning strike, well, what we can do individually in terms of this is, I'm still figuring that out right now, but as a group, well, we just don't have enough members able to control the ship. That would be our failure. And then the third one, which is the freak wave, well, getting knocked prone. Somebody had mentioned knocked prone as an individual consequence, but also taking some bludgeoning damage. Failure with the third one, in terms of the freak wave, well, the ship starts to get to get swamped. Yep. The last one, which is avoiding the rock and the reef, individual success or failure and group success or failure. Well, we wind up with a hole in the ship would be the group check. And for the individual, it would be, again, probably being knocked off your feet and taking a few hit points. Do you know what I mean? That's probably the easiest way, just to rough throw it out there. I haven't had a chance to write it down. And I will have to go back through this and do a bit of homework, because we've written down a lot of different ideas. I'm glad we have. I just wish we had spent more time on the failure and success stuff as well. 2 hours it's hard to get it all in. And of course, your skill challenges don't need to look this complicated. I am just getting you to come up with ideas and then writing them down, and hopefully in a way that will make sense. So let us go into our It's time for Fred to leave time. There is a time where Fred has to go because he's got to go to work. So let's do this. Where is my scene? So I just want to thank everybody for taking part today in this live stream. We have done a lot of work. You will find this will eventually wind up on Patreon, the documentation for this. So I want to thank all my patrons who support me so I can keep doing this for people. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been part of my live streams and provided. This is hard. Making a skill challenge is actually quite difficult. So really thank you for those people who provided some ideas. Don't feel bad if I didn't pick up on your ideas or didn't know what to do with them, because it doesn't matter ultimately in the end, because guess what? You're going to change the skill challenge no matter what I give you anyway. And you should. You should change it. And thank you for watching my the replays of my live streams and my edited videos. So no matter where you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the night, or the wee early morning or the afternoon, I want to say thank you. Please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.